La seconda preparazione che vedremo oggi è una base.
The second preparation we're going to see today is a base, like egg pasta enriched with fat and sugars, and we're talking about frappe or 𝐒𝐻𝐚𝐬𝐫𝐢𝐻n𝐞, great carnival dessert, which must be done in a good quality. We'll try to explain you what the main points we must keep under control are. The mechanical part is very simple because we're inserting all of the products together. Why? Because we're talking about products like flour, like eggs and sugar and fats. So more or less we're using the four basic ingredients in pastry. We're going to add some white wine for the aromatic part and for the slight sweetening power. In fact, white wine will tend to give a little bit of perfume and sweetness to our product. So we're saying that by inserting the ingredients as usual in 11 products, so the liquids and powders together and then the fats, we're going to form a product that's too strong in gluten. If we give too much gluten to the product, it will be too closed in the mouth, with a too harsh consistency. Adding the butter together kind of disturbs the formation of gluten, so we're going to have a base that is structured but will have a great friability, because in some parts the butter has stopped the gluten formation. There are various ways. After the kneading, we're going to make a very quick dough because we prefer to layer our frappe dough with the dough sheeter, and this will give us a very smooth and compact structure. We could do it with a rolling pin, but imagine on big quantities that you'll make in a laboratory, it would be too complex and too expensive. So we can either work the mass very well. We are going to work it very well, and we're going to either vacuum it and put it in the fridge or blast chiller, or we're going to let it rest. The gluten will tend to rest and the butter will restabilize thanks to the temperatures that are lower. Or we might work quickly the product here, not completely finish it and layer it and spread it out very quickly. So we're going to take our flour. We're going to use a 00 weak flour as usual, even though we're making a dough in which we're putting all of the ingredients together, we are still going to sift it. Frappe often don't have a very defined aromatic part, so we can use more or less the same aromas as always, or maybe enrich them with some cinnamon, some star anise. The problem is that when we use some aromas that have a deep color, this of course will be seen on the final product, so they will stain our oil, so we'll have to change it many times. So flour, and we're going to add the butter right away, always at around 10 to 12 degrees. We're going to add our salt, a pinch of salt, and the liquid part, so white wine, sugar, and eggs. As I said, today we won't add the aromatic part for our choice, and I'll also explain you why. In the meantime, we're going to turn on our machine, because even using a microplane and even making zests that are very small, since it is a smooth structure, the zests might disturb the dough, and when we will sheet it out, the zest will kind of divide the dough, so we wouldn't have a nice color. So what I can advise you, if you want to add an aromatic part, either aromas, so liquid aromas, or you can make a powder, and a groom powder, so zest them and let them dry either in the microwave or in the oven at 80-90 degrees. So in that case we can insert the powders as an aromatic part. In the meantime, we're going to make some room. In the specific case of frappe base, do not use a bowl to preserve the product, but we need to push it down and to favor a quick resting phase or cooling phase. The higher the volume, the longer it's going to take. So we're talking about volume here. Clearly, lard or butter or a seed oil is always needed to isolate the product. We can work with the leaf paddle because we just have to mix, it doesn't need to be kneaded. Because we're going to sheet it out with a sheeter, dough sheeter. So I'm going to show you an example. In this phase you can see how the product is rough. It is good for us because from here we're going to remove the mixture and we're going to roll it out and fold it at least 4 times. The typical folds of puff pastry. So we'll finish the main structure of our frappe directly in the sheeting out phase. If instead you want to finish your dough, we're going to see it just like this. We're going to remove the leaf and we're going to take our spiral hook and we're going to finish kneading. The hook has this peculiar, you can see the difference compared to when we use the leaf. In this case, the dough is creating a major adherence of the product. We just needed a few movements to compact the compound, the mixture, and start drying it out, and so having the structure that we will need. So if you want to sheet it out and fold it, don't overload the hook face, but it was correct to show you. So either leaf and then fold, or finish the product with the hook. Once our product is ready, what we're going to do is we're going to take it out of the machine. We're going to bring it to our working surface. Even though the dough will require it because it's still very damp, do not add any powders. You can see that it sticks because it's very damp, and clearly it's a dough that must be like this to have the right consistency after the resting phase. We're going to do this. Now we're going to take plastic film and we're going to spread it on the working surface. And some lard. And we're going to just slightly grease, even though we don't need, because when it cools down it will be perfectly, it won't have a strong adherence on the foil, but to be completely safe we're going to do it anyways. We're going to put the dough nice and pushed and we're going to close. As usual, resting of the butter unresting of the gluten. We're going to let it blast chill positive 40 minutes, 1 hour, 3 hours, 3 hours and a half in the fridge. Then we're going to take it out. We're going to fold it a couple times to have it more smooth and compact. After having our dough rested, we're going to start to fold it a couple times. So we'll clearly need a little bit of flour to prevent it from attaching everywhere. If you have the perception that the dough is very damp, you can tampon it with some, so you can remove the humidity with some paper. So be careful, especially in the first part. We're going to roll it out like this. We have to bring it to the right thickness to be able to work with the machine. For small portions, we can also use a dough sheeter like this. So maximum thickness now, and we're going to start rolling it. Every time we pass it, control that there is the right quantity of flour that allows us to have a good isolation. Then folding by 3, turning it the other way around, spreading it with some flour. This allows us to have a more homogeneous structure and a better result. Again, folding by 3. Pushing it a little bit, like this. I advise to do between 5 and 6 folds. As you go on, you will realize that the mixture, as you can see, it's getting smoother and smoother and more homogeneous, and it tends to puff up. If you see that it has a very strong resistance, maybe it might need a little bit more resting time. So for some aspects, it's important, if you do this type of job, to knead it as little as possible in the beginning. Or you're going to do it maybe the night before, make it the night before. This makes the last one, and then we're going to go to the final thickness. Going to cut it in half, simply to have a better workability. Every time I pass it through, I'm going to decrease the thickness of the two barrels, always one value at a time. Every value equals a number. When you are getting to the final phase, never roll it out to the wanted thickness, because after the folds we will have a strong retention of the mass, so we can stop one value before to then finish the laying just in the moment in which you're ready to fry. Always check the status, the humidity status. It's around a couple millimeters thickness. Depends on also on the consistency you want to obtain. Always hold it. Okay. When you have a kind of transparency, it is basically ready. Now we're going to place it like this, check that there is a good flour isolation. We're going to do this just underneath, so that when we cut through it, it's easier to work with. Always remember that, for example, shapes and sizes, everything is very proportional. We prefer to use a smooth roll or a curly one. And Frappe have a shape that's kind of uncoordinated, so more or less it's this dimension. Couple cuts in the middle, even just one. This allows us during the cooking to have a better curling of the product during the deep frying. Even just one cut. Now we're going to place them on our tray to then start deep frying. We can eventually create some decorations. We can curl our product up. This will give us a more voluminous shape. You can see just like this. Crossing it, so in the opening on one side and on the other side. And we must give opportunities to our creativity. Always quite detached and distanced. And now, always advise you to wait 10 seconds to let them dry a little bit and let them rest, even at room temperature. The important thing is that it's well covered. We're going to let it rest. And now we're going to directly deep fry. We're going to deep fry with a constant temperature around 160 degrees. And remember that they will cook very quickly. So remember to turn them constantly with a tongue. Then just strain them, remove the excess oil, and sprinkle with some icing sugar. Then we'll see that during the final part. And this is it with the preparation of the frappe.